Life on the Willow Creek was, for the longest time, a postcard of tranquility. Sunlight dappled through the weeping willows that gave the creek its name, painting shifting patterns on the water's surface, and there, nestled amongst the reeds and lily pads, was my home, a floating sanctuary unlike any other. Constructed from reclaimed timber and buoyant pontoons, it was more than just a houseboat. It was a testament to sustainable living and quirky ingenuity. I'd spent years crafting it, pouring my heart and soul into every plank and porthole. Little did I know that this idyllic existence was about to be shattered by the arrival of a storm named Karen, whose ambitions were as boundless as her sense of entitlement. The creek, once a haven, would soon become a battlefield. The first sign of trouble came with the U-Haul at a monstrous, gas-guzzling beast lumbering down the narrow lane, spitting gravel and shattering the morning quiet. From it emerged Karen, all perfectly coiffed hair and aggressively cheerful waves. "So excited to be your neighbor," she chirped, her voice carrying a little too far across the water. The initial pleasantries were brief, a forced smile here, a strained conversation about property values there. But the smile soon faded, replaced by a constant stream of complaints on why wind chimes were disturbing the peace. My solar panels were an eyesore. And then came the big one. A claim that my floating home was encroaching on her property line, extending further into the creek than legally allowed. The battle lines were drawn. The property line dispute was just the opening salvo. Karen's campaign of harassment quickly escalated from annoying to outright malicious. The local authorities became intimately familiar with my address thanks to her constant, baseless reports, noise violations, illegal dumping, even accusations of harboring endangered wildlife. Apparently, ducks don't count. Then came the property damage. My carefully cultivated garden, inexplicably trampled. Fishing lines, deliberately tangled in my boat's propeller. One morning, I even found my solar panels covered in what I sincerely hoped was mud. And the confrontations became more frequent, her voice rising in pitch and volume, fueled by an unshakable belief in her own righteousness. It was clear. Karen wasn't just trying to win a dispute. She was trying to drive me out. The crux of Karen's argument, the supposed basis for her relentless attacks, was her assertion of ownership over a portion of the riverbed where my floating home was moored. She brandished a tattered, photocopied document, an obscure bylaw from the early 1900s, riddled with legalese and seemingly designed to confuse. According to this ancient decree, riparian rights extended not just to the water's edge, but a certain distance into the waterway itself. Karen interpreted this, of course, in the most self-serving way possible, claiming that my home was anchored illegally on her submerged land. It was absurd. A legal relic dredged up from the depths of time. But she clung to it with the tenacity of a barnacle, convinced it was her golden ticket to victory. Faced with Karen's unwavering conviction and increasingly unhinged behavior, I knew I had no choice but to lawyer up. Enter Ms. Eleanor Reynolds, a seasoned attorney with a no-nonsense demeanor and a healthy skepticism for ancient bylaws. The good news? Eleanor thought Karen's claim was ludicrous. The bad news? Ludicrous claims can still cost a fortune to defend against. Thus began the legal battle, a frustrating and expensive dance of motions, depositions, and endless paperwork. Each step forward seemed to be met with 2 steps back, as Karen relentlessly pursued her case, fueled by an endless supply of indignation and, it seemed, an equally endless supply of funds. The serenity of Willow Creek was now replaced by the sterile hum of the courthouse. Eleanor, bless her tenacious soul, wasn't content with simply defending against Karen's attacks. She decided to dig deeper, to understand what fueled this relentless animosity. What she unearthed was enlightening, to say the least. It turned out Willow Creek wasn't Karen's first rodeo. A background check revealed a string of similar disputes in other neighborhoods. Noise complaints, property line squabbles, even a lawsuit over the height of a fenced Karen had left a trail of legal wreckage in her wake. She was, in essence, a professional litigant, seemingly addicted to conflict and convinced of her own unwavering righteousness. This discovery, while infuriating, also provided a glimmer of hope. Knowing her history gave us a better understanding of her tactics and, perhaps, a way to finally defeat her. Now, you might be wondering how a simple property dispute on Willow Creek could possibly involve a Navy ship. That's where my past comes in. Before I embraced the tranquil life of a river dweller, I served my country. Years spent navigating complex naval procedures, deciphering arcane regulations, and yes, even exploiting the occasional legal loophole, had equipped me with a unique set of skills that I knew: the chain of command, the protocols for requesting assistance, and, perhaps most importantly, the surprisingly broad mandate the Navy had when it came to surveying waterways. It was a long shot, a Hail Mary play born of desperation and a healthy dose of dark humor. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized Karen's archaic bylaw might just be vulnerable to a modern naval solution. The conversation with Eleanor went something like this. So, hypothetically, I began, is there any legal precedent for using, say, a naval vessel to conduct a property survey? Eleanor choked on her coffee. After a moment of stunned silence, she managed a hesitant, well, I suppose if the Navy is authorized to survey the waterway, and the survey is conducted according to established protocols, and it's all perfectly legal and above board. That's how the ludicrous idea of Operation Shell Karen's House, a name Eleanor vehemently objected to, was born. It was outlandish, bordering on insane. But the more we discussed it, the more we realized it might actually be possible. A precise naval survey would definitively establish the property lines, rendering Karen's archaic bylaw irrelevant. The key, of course, was navigating the bureaucratic labyrinth and convincing the Navy that this wasn't some elaborate prank. What followed was a bureaucratic odyssey of epic proportions. I spent weeks buried in paperwork, filling out forms in triplicate, and making endless phone calls to various naval departments. Explaining the situation without sounding completely unhinged proved to be a particular challenge. Yes, I need a Navy ship to settle a neighborly dispute involving an archaic bylaw and a floating home. There were moments when I thought the whole thing would collapse under its own weight of absurdity. But I persevered, fueled by a stubborn refusal to be bullied by Karen. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the approvals came through. The Navy, after carefully considering the legal precedents and the potential for valuable waterway data collection, had agreed to conduct the survey. Operation Shell Karen's House was officially a go. With the Navy on board, the next step was assembling the A-team. I reached out to a few trusted former colleagues, individuals with experience in naval operations, surveying, and, most importantly, a shared appreciation for the absurd. These weren't just any sailors, they were problem solvers, rule benders, and masters of logistical improvisation. Eleanor, of course, also played a crucial role, ensuring that every step of the operation was legally sound and meticulously documented. We needed to be bulletproof, anticipating every possible challenge in Karen's inevitable, over-the-top reaction. This wasn't just about winning a property dispute. It was about sending a clear message. Don't mess with a veteran and their floating home. The day the Navy arrived, Willow Creek transformed from a sleepy backwater into a spectacle. The collective jaws of the neighborhood residents dropped as a sleek, gray naval vessel glided into view, its presence utterly incongruous with the tranquil surroundings. Camera phones were whipped out, whispers rippled through the air, and dogs barked in confused excitement. But no one was more affected than Karen. That I watched from my floating home as her face cycled through a kaleidoscope of emotions: disbelief, outrage, and finally, a simmering fury that threatened to boil over. The carefully orchestrated arrival was designed to be both impressive and intimidating, a clear demonstration of the lengths I was willing to go to defend my home, and judging by Karen's reaction, it was working perfectly. The Navy personnel, all crisp uniforms and serious expressions, went to work with methodical precision. They deployed sonar equipment, took meticulous measurements, and consulted detailed nautical charts. It was a ballet of technology and expertise, a stark contrast to Karen's tattered photocopy and ill-informed pronouncements. The survey took hours, but the results were irrefutable. The Navy's data definitively proved that my floating home was legally moored within the established boundaries, well within my riparian rights. Karen's claim, based on that ancient bylaw, was utterly without merit. The shelling was complete, and the target was neutralized, legally and decisively. As the Navy personnel prepared to depart, Karen seized her opportunity. She stormed towards them, a whirlwind of indignation and entitlement. Her voice, amplified by the open air, carried across the creek. Accusations of government overreach, wasteful spending, and even treason were hurled at the bewildered sailors. She demanded to see their commanding officer, threatened to sue the Navy, and generally made a spectacle of herself. The sailors, trained to handle all sorts of situations, remained remarkably composed, politely deflecting her tirade with practiced neutrality. But the damage was done. Karen's outburst, witnessed by the entire neighborhood, cemented her image as an unreasonable and irrational antagonist. She had effectively shelled herself. The courtroom showdown was anticlimactic. Eleanor presented the Navy's survey data, a meticulously documented and irrefutable testament to the legality of my floating home's mooring. Karen, predictably, objected, citing the aforementioned ancient bylaw and accusing the Navy of being part of a vast conspiracy against her. The judge, visibly weary, listened patiently before delivering his verdict. He dismissed Karen's claims with prejudice, ruling definitively in my favor. The legal battle was over and I had won. The sense of relief was immense, a weight lifted after months of stress and uncertainty. But more than that, there was a profound satisfaction in knowing that I had stood my ground and defended my home against an unreasonable aggressor. Karen, utterly humiliated, retreated into her house, a self-imposed exile from the Willow Creek community. The petty harassment ceased, the baseless reports stopped, and a fragile peace returned to the river. The neighbors, initially wary, offered cautious smiles and words of support. Relieved that the drama was finally over, sitting on the deck of my floating home, watching the sunset paint the sky in vibrant hues, I couldn't help but reflect on the absurdity of it all. Had it really come to this? Had I really had to shell my neighbor's house with a Navy ship to defend my right to live in peace? The answer, unfortunately, was yes. But as the saying goes, all's well that ends well. And for the first time in months, Willow Creek felt like home again. The peace, as it turned out, was short-lived. Just when I thought I could finally relax and enjoy my floating home, a new legal notice arrived. This time, Karen wasn't claiming ownership of the riverbed. I don't know. She'd moved on to bigger and better, or rather more bizarre, things. She now claimed that my floating home was a navigational hazard, an eyesore that depreciated her property value. And this was my personal favorite, a source of unnatural currents that were eroding the shoreline. Each claim was more outlandish than the last. A desperate attempt to reignite the legal battle and continue her reign of terror on Willow Creek. It seemed Operation Shell Karen's house had only enraged her further. Pushing her into a new level of absurdity, I relayed Karen's latest accusations to Eleanor, expecting a weary sigh or perhaps a suggestion to countersue for harassment. Instead, a slow smile spread across her face. "I think," she said, her eyes twinkling with mischief, "it's time we fought fire with even more fire." What followed was another brainstorming session, fueled by caffeine and a shared sense of disbelief at Karen's audacity. The plan Eleanor devised was so outlandish, so audacious, that it made the Navy ship incident seem almost tame in comparison to it involved. Well, I can't reveal all the details just yet. But let's just say it played upon Karen's new claims, amplified them to their most ridiculous extreme, and turned them completely against her. It was absurd. Yes, but also brilliantly diabolical. The inherent problem with brilliantly diabolical plans is that they often skirt the edges of legality. To ensure we weren't crossing any lines, Eleanor consulted with a network of legal colleagues, seasoned lawyers, and even a couple of surprisingly open-minded judges. We needed to be absolutely certain that our counteroffensive, however outlandish, was airtight. The feedback was surprisingly consistent. While everyone agreed the plan was unusual, they also confirmed that it was technically legal as long as we adhered to certain guidelines and dotted all our I's and crossed all our T's. We were in the clear. The green light was given. It was time to unleash the absurdity. Months of preparation, meticulous planning, and countless late-night strategy sessions had all led to this moment. It was time to deploy the plan. The pieces were in place, the team was ready, and the target was blissfully unaware of the storm brewing on the horizon. We'd kept everything under wraps, operating with the utmost secrecy. Karen, consumed by her own self-righteous indignation, hadn't suspected a thing. She was about to learn that pushing a veteran with a floating home and a lawyer with a penchant for the absurd was a very, very bad idea. The stage was set for a showdown of epic proportions, a clash between entitlement and ingenuity, and I couldn't wait to see the look on her face when the curtain finally rose. To be continued in Part 2, which will reveal Karen's reaction and the exact nature of the plan. So what did I learn from all this? Well, First, defending your property rights is essential, even when it means resorting to the absurd. Second, never underestimate the power of a well-placed Navy ship. And third, and perhaps most importantly, always choose your neighbors wisely. Standing up to unreasonable people isn't always easy, but it's necessary. Sometimes, it requires creativity, a dash of military strategy, and a whole lot of legal maneuvering. And while I wouldn't recommend shelling your neighbor's house unless absolutely necessary, remember this: even the most outrageous claims can be defeated with a little ingenuity and a healthy dose of unwavering resolve. And maybe, just maybe, a good lawyer with a taste for the ridiculous.